Hey kids, it's Trailblazer. Got some exciting Battletech coverage for you this time, actually. This episode I'm going to be talking about my preparations for a cool tournament coming up, which is the Brawl in the Bluegrass tournament in Lexington, Kentucky. So it's going to be in March. I'm going to be talking about my list and some of the things that are going to be happening at the tournament, and maybe I'll see some of you guys there. So the first thing to say about this tournament is that it's going to count towards MRC ranking points. It's an official MRC tournament. And what this means is just that you'll get points out of this that will count towards your ranking within the MRC. Now, how much does MRC ranking matter? Obviously, it's not the end-all and be-all, and a lot of players, who are great haven't really joined the MRC or don't have MRC rankings that are as high as maybe they deserve. But a thing about it for me is that when I think of the players that are really highly ranked in the MRC, I have a lot of respect for all of them and for their skills in Battletech. So for me, I'd love to earn some points and end up, up with those guys at some point in my life. There's a couple of other things I'm really looking forward to at this tournament, and I think a lot of you folks will be interested. So if you want, there's a link in the show notes to the information about the tournament and how you could register if you like. But anyway, the first of these things that I'm really looking forward to is a trip to Ironwind Metals to take a look at where the Battletech metal miniatures are put together and, maybe pick up a few, which would be awesome. It's been too long since I bought a metal miniature. As an old school Battletech guy, when I think of Battletech miniatures, I really do still think of metal miniatures. And a lot of the Ironwind miniatures, they've got a lot of new ones that are keeping up with the new look of Battletech. So I'm excited to see what they've got on offer. The next special feature that this tournament has, which is super exciting to me, is a Trial of Bloodright, which is a elimination tournament where I gather you're fighting with just one mech or just one unit at a time. And there's a Clan Goliath Scorpion blood name up for grabs. The winner of the tournament will receive this blood name as a kind of, I think, semi-official thing. So, that's a really cool thing. I mean, obviously 1v1, one mech versus one mech Battletech, there's a lot of luck involved in that, especially when it comes to the initiative. So, winning this thing, there's going to be a big element of luck to it, but it would be really cool to have a blood name. And finally, I gather from people who came to this tournament last year, the first time it was held, that the missions are really interesting and creative. And, it just seems like a fun thing. I haven't actually played in an in-person tournament before, although I've played in a number of Megamech tournaments. So this will be a new experience for me, and I'm really, excited for that. Anybody who's going, let me know, and I'll say hi to you at the tournament. So if I'm going to go, I got to think about list building. The constraints in this tournament are that it's a 9,000 battle value list set during the 3070s Word of Blake era, which is a really nice era to play in because there's some cool weapons that get introduced, the snub-nosed PPC and the multi-missile launcher, for example, which make for a lot of fun. And additionally, a lot of the cannon designs that are added during this period are extremely powerful and interesting. So I really like the opportunity to build a list in this period. And building a list for an in-person tournament is actually kind of a different problem to solve than the one that I have been focused on over the last few months, building lists for Megamech events. So I'm going to talk a bit also about the different way that I think about in-person competition and how to do a list for it. Of course, big grain of salt is I haven't done an in-person tournament yet. And so, take this with that very grain of salt. But with that said, I have done in-person wargaming events before. Warhammer I've done. And a thing that I noticed was a problem, and actually a problem that impacted my play, was there were 3 games in a day, which is how the classic Battletech tournament for this event is going to be. And when I got to the 3rd game, I was deliriously mentally tired and just making a ton of mistakes, just really playing my army badly. So I really want to try to generate a list for this tournament that is not going to succumb as easily to those kind of problems. And what that means is that I'd like to have a list that doesn't exactly play itself, but plays more straightforwardly and quickly than the Mega Mech lists that I'm used to. You know, I'm not going to have the computer rolling the dice for me this time. I'm going to have to be rolling my own dice. And so I'm going to want to kind of limit, for one thing, ideally the amount of dice rolls that I've got to do, although you can only do that so much while having a competitive list, especially in this period when multi-missile launchers are so good. But anyway, I'm going to try and limit my dice rolls, and most importantly, I'm going to try and limit some of the tough decisions that have to go into a game. So a thing that gives me a ton of analysis paralysis in Battletech is having a fast-moving unit, especially like a mech or a hovercraft for that matter, that goes on ground speed. You know, something like a Scarabus or a Fireball or, you know, pretty much any hover tank. If I'm playing in person, it's so much work and so much mental effort to calculate where that unit can go and where it can't. And without having the Mega Mech resources of displaying the possible moves, I feel like it's very easy for me to make disastrous mistakes when I'm playing with those really fast ground-based units in person. So this gets to my first pick, which is a pretty definite pick that I'm pretty sure I'm bringing. I want to have a fast unit that is really mobile and can be an objective runner as well as kind of a backstabber. And I'm thinking it's got to be something that is both fast and has fast jump capability, because that'll make it so much easier to play. Now, pulse lasers are also going to make a jump capable unit much easier to play. So I've decided to go for the thing that is probably definitely the cheesiest mech that I'm going to be building on this list, or I'm going to be bringing on this list, which is a Venom KC. I've talked about this mech before, and it really is a devastating unit with solid armor, as well as excellent firepower, great heat management, and amazing jump speed. It's really got it all. It's probably the best light mech, I would think, in the game, and during this period at least. And I think it's going to be a real asset. I expect I'll be docked in the cheese score, which is fine. I accept that. But another reason I'm excited to bring a Venom, which is a little bit less kind of metagamey, is that because I love the Venom so much, one of the guys at my local game store 3D printed a really nice looking Venom model for me to use. And so, you know, I'm not the world's greatest painter, but I painted it up okay, you know, especially by my standards. And I am excited to use that thing on the actual table. So like I said, I want to put together a list that's going to play quickly and not in too difficult of a way. Well, I think a way to do that is with a list that includes a lot of mechs that are kind of glass cannons, right? Mechs that have XL engines on top of plenty of ammunition. These are going to be mechs that, for one thing, you get a pretty steep battle value discount for them, so they can be actually a really good deal for the BV. And for another thing, they're going to either tend to win quickly or they're going to tend to lose quickly. But my hope is that the list is not going to play too slowly, and I'll maybe be getting done with my games a little early. And again, there's not going to be as much mental fatigue, I hope, from playing this army. So with that in mind, the first glass cannon mech that I picked that I think is a really good battle value deal is the Albatross, the original 3U Albatross. Now this is a mech that has a really wide variety of different weapons. It's got something for any occasion. It's armored like a heavy mech, but it's also battle value costed like a heavy mech. So that makes it a pretty battle value efficient unit. It's got a lot of explosive ammo on board. It's got an extra light engine on board, but it also has a 95-ton frame. So there's a significant chance that the mech will be sticking around pretty long into the game, even though there's also a significant chance that it'll be blowing up on me pretty quickly. And then the next mech that I'm bringing, which I also think is very battle value efficient, is this Word of Blake Crusader. This thing packs a whole lot of MML launchers. So when you get close to it, at long distances, it's going to have a solid long-range missile punch. But when you get close to it, it's going to just blast you like crazy with short-range missiles, which will be, again, a factor that kind of adds a significant random factor to the game. Rolling all those dice will slow things down, but I'm going to bring a box of Doom with me, a whole bunch of dice, set it up into a box to roll together, and hopefully that will speed up the process of playing with this Crusader. But on the whole, my philosophy for the brawler mechs in this list, I think you can see, is mechs that have significant firepower, certain vulnerabilities, but they're costed like mechs that are like one weight class below them. So the Crusader, it actually has excellent armor, but once you get underneath that armor, there's a lot of ammo on board. It has an XL engine. It also has an XL gyro, so there are a lot of ways for things to go wrong with this mech, but we are playing with floating critical hits, so that's going to be, the XL gyro is not an automatic loss like it might be. So I think this mech is a really strong mech for how much battle value you pay for it, even though, again, it's kind of a tinderbox and it could explode in my face very quickly. My plan, which I think is flavorful, is to bring a lance of mechs and kind of a section of 2 vehicles. Now, the 4th mech is something that I'm still mulling over, so let me talk first about the 2 tanks that I have in mind. The first one of these is the heavy ferrofibrous armor version of the Shrek PPC carrier. The Shrek has this amazing kind of medium long-range arsenal. It's a really nice fire support unit, and I suspect that the missions in this tournament will be designed to maybe bring units close together. So I think a max range of 18 and a minimum range of 12 on those PPCs is actually going to be a pretty good range for a fire support unit. But of course, the classic Shrek has this problem with not having enough armor. Fortunately, in the Ill Clan period when this tournament takes place, there's a lot of options for up-armored Shreks, and this is one that is available to the Mercenary MUL, which I'm using. So I'm going to bring this unit. I think it's going to be real cool. I also think that tanks are going to be really useful at this tournament because we're allowed to have a 2-point spread between your gunnery skill and your piloting or your driving skill. And this means that I can take these tanks at gunnery 3 and driving skill 5, which I think is a really points efficient way to get some really accurate firepower in this tournament. Vehicles, of course, tanks, you don't really need to take driving skill any better than 5 unless you're going to be in a city setting or an area that has a lot of weird terrain. So the other tank I have in mind is just a classic, the Manticore. Good at lots of different ranges, plenty of firepower with both an armor-piercing PPC and then a lot of crit-seeking capabilities. So this is another tank that I think is just going to perform really well, especially for the modest amount of battle value that I'm investing in it. Okay, so what's my last mech going to be? I've saved a lot of battle value points by going with these kind of modestly costed assault and heavy mechs, the Crusader and that Albatross. So now what do I spend all those points on? I need some more speed in this list, and I'm thinking a Falconer might be a good option. Now the basic Gauss Rifle Falconer is just too expensive in terms of battle value to take in a tournament. So I'm thinking about bringing the heavy PPC / LB10X variant of the Falconer. This is obviously also a very expensive mech, but I have the points and it's got lots of different things it can do. It can fight pretty well at short range with its medium lasers and that LB10X. It's a really great kind of medium long range sniper, again going out to that 18 hex range, which I think will be really good. And the 585 movement at 75 tons is phenomenal. So my heart really belongs to the Falconer. It's one of my favorite mechs, and I've never taken it to a kind of big in-person, play event before. So I really do kind of want to bring that, but it's occurred to me that something that's more points efficient and that I could take at veteran skill level would be this Rakshasa with the snub-nose PPCs. That's a really, really good mech. It doesn't have the jump capability, so it might not be so good for mobility missions. I'm really torn about which of these two mechs to take. I think in the end, there's a high likelihood that I'll choose the Falconer because I just love the Falconer and it would feel so good to bring one. But the Rakshasa is probably better, especially if you factor in the better skill level that it will allow me to take for my mechs. So, you know, I'm curious what advice you have. I'll put up the list of the lances that I'm thinking about taking. So these are the two versions of my lance plus section of tanks that I'm thinking about taking. Let me know what you guys think. You know, I'm gonna have to reach a decision sometime around like the end of the month, hopefully before us, to make things easier for Tweezer, who's running the tournament. And you know, I could just use some feedback, I think, because I'm really, you know, just torn between these two options, the Falconer versus the Rakshasa. Okay, thanks for sitting through my thought process about all this, you guys. I hope to see some of you at this tournament, and if you haven't signed up, there's still time to come. It's going to be really cool, and there's going to be a lot of great players there from what I can tell. So, you know, if I end up seeing you there, just come up to me and say hi. I'll be wearing my silly mercenaries jacket. Yeah, it'd be cool to meet some of you folks there. Take care.